All right, is it on? Yep. Okay, we're live. All right, so we're going to talk about the carnivore diet and ketosis. And I did this lecture like a year ago, and I have been eating way more meat now than ever before. So I'll give you my personal story and the benefits I've experienced and the detriments. And I have a lot of other stories from other patients who have taken on this way of eating. And so I got sucked into Twitter in June of last year, and I had started following some low-carb doctors, and in that mix of low-carbers, there's carnivore people and ketogenic eaters and ketogenic dieters, and the one thing that's always in common is low-carb, and that's basically our evolution. Like our ancestors did not have pasta and junk food and fruits available in abundance at the grocery store year-round. So low-carb is one thing that everybody has in common with this. But then there are a smaller percentage of people who are eating just meat, nothing but meat. And so, for 3 years, 8 years, 20 years, one person 22 years of just nothing but meat. And they have various conditions that made them do that. One would be that they're allergic to a lot of foods, like a lot of plants, and the plant chemicals that can cause problems in arthritis and inflammation, histamines, salicylates, lectins, oxalates, these various plant chemicals. So plants grow on the ground. They can't run away from you. They can't kick you like an animal can. So the plants make these chemicals and they punish you for eating them, whereas the animals would run away or bite you or something like that. So there was a guy named, I can't remember his name, but his nickname is the Bear, and he was a roadie for the Grateful Dead. He was carnivore for 52 years. He died in a car accident maybe 3-4 years ago. You can find him, he still has his website up, but that's the longest that I've heard of is 52 years. Another guy named Jonas Vanderplan, it's a weird name. He's from California. People in California are weird. They have weird experiences and they have weird stories. I believe every story that they say. But so Jonas was very, very sick as a teenager, and in his early 20s, he was dying. He had several rounds of cancer. His diet was just absolutely horrible. Cereal mixed in with Pepsi, just horrible diet. He didn't know any better. And he came to the stage where he wanted to actually maybe do something about his health. And he started visiting some native tribes and some of the medicine men on the West Coast. And they told him to eat meat. And he didn't believe it. He went to several people. And he got to the point where he was camping. He wanted to die. And he was out in the desert of California. And he had been there for a few weeks. And in his story, he said that there were some coyotes that sort of got to know him, like they knew his presence and they knew he was sick. The coyotes brought him a dead rabbit. And as a child, his dad taught him, if you ever eat red meat, or if you ever eat raw meat, you will die from infection. So he said, all right, great, this is my opportunity to commit suicide. So he ate this raw rabbit that night, and he gets up from where he was eating it, and he feels this heavenly presence and this power that he never felt before. And he goes, oh, this is great, I'm dying. Like I haven't felt this good in my whole life. And he goes to bed and he wakes up in the morning and he's still alive. And he's pinching himself, like I'm still alive, I can't believe it. Well, he determined it was from eating this raw meat. So he left the desert and he started working for farmers, and he said, I'll do whatever you need me to do around the farm. Just feed me fresh milk and fresh meat, and he gained 50 pounds of muscle doing that, and it saved his life. And he started giving some speaking tours in the 1990s and talking about it. And there are videos online that you can see of him talking about his experiences. And there's a story where a woman had called him up on a Friday, and she had emphysema and she was dying. And she was on her deathbed, and she said, I'm on my deathbed. I'm supposed to die this weekend. What do I do? And he said, well, eat as many raw eggs as you possibly can. So on Monday, she called him back and said, okay, I did it, and I'm not dead. I'm out of bed. Now what do I do? And he goes, wait a minute, what did you do? And she said, well, I had 36 eggs for Saturday and 36 eggs for Sunday. And it saved her life and got her out of her deathbed. And I actually did a video, I put it on my YouTube channel, what do you eat on your deathbed? You eat raw meat and raw eggs and raw butter. So Dr. Weston Price from the 1930s, he was famous for many reasons, but one of his reasons was he would go to people's deathbed with June butter, so the grass is growing like really fast in June, the cows eat it, and the butter is orange, plus cod liver oil. You combine those two together, and people would come out, you know, he would save their lives. But that's the point of, like, if you want to get healthy and save your life and reverse various conditions, you got to look at the meat. You got, you know, whether it's raw or fermented or cooked or whatever, there's nutrients in there that feed your body. Your body is made out of meat, right? So that's what that comes down to. So there's various, I'm going to actually turn on this, and on the video, this is going to look funky, like I'm going to turn like shadowy or whatever, but we're going to turn this on. I'm going to show you some books. Some classic books on the subject. Yeah, it's coming up. All right, so this website is called zerocarbzen.com, and the woman that runs this is Amber O'Hearn, and she actually had her first ever carnivore conference back in March in Boulder, Colorado, which I attended, and so you can see the website there at the top. But this is a list of classic books right here. We got 4 of them, so I just pulled a couple. This is called The Fat of the Land from Wilhelmer Stephenson, 1960, I think it was. And then I have a video of Wilhelmer right here, rare footage of Wilhelmer Stephenson, the Arctic explorer, 1957. So, you know, late 19-teens or in the 1920s, he was an Arctic explorer. And he spent, I think it was 13 seasons. I think it's been a while since I watched this video, but the interviewer said how many years, and his response was 13 seasons with the Eskimo, and he just ate meat, and that was it. And he talked about how some of the Eskimo would eat only the muscle, whereas other tribes would eat muscle plus organs. And really, I don't think it really matters, but it's personal preference. I honestly believe that our ancestors ate everything, and the Smithsonian Institute, yeah, some of the archaeologists would find, you know, the old encampments, like the fire-cracked rocks, showing like these hunter-gatherers controlled fire, and you would see the bones of the animals that they ate. But our ancestors would take the whole mouse and just eat the whole mouse, tail, fur, everything, chomp on it, or the whole rabbit, you know, and they would take rocks and they would just crush the bones of the rabbit, you know, like this, and then just start chewing on it. And whole birds. So in the camp latrine area, there were the bones and the fur and the feathers. And what was interesting is like the skull of those animals was mostly digested. So our stomachs, our ancestors' stomachs, and our stomachs should be able to digest the bones too. So that's the traditional diet right there. And here's another book, What Must I Do to Get Well and How Can I Keep So? And the year of that one was 1898. And these books are basically all about just eating meat, like the meat diet. So I'm going to close this up. Now, in 1965 at Indiana University, there was the protein-sparing modified fast diet, PSMF. And what that means is it's a modified fast. It's a fast where you reduce your food intake or eliminate your food intake except protein. You spare your protein in your diet. So people are eating lots of protein, and it's low carb, low fat, the protein-sparing modified fast. Now, there's different, you know, you could get technical with it or you could be relaxed with these parameters, but what's the best source of protein? It's meat. So, you know, when you do this kind of way of eating, what you leverage or what you increase or decrease is your fat intake. Right? The carbs are low, and the fat is up or down, depending on what you need to do, and then your protein intake is high. Now, what I just described to you right there is called the unified theory of food. So there are nutrients that you want to have as much as you can get. protein, vitamins, and minerals. Eat as much of those as you need to or as you want. And then when your carbs are low, that's healthy, and maybe you're in ketosis because they're low enough. And then your protein, if you want to lose weight, if you want to lose weight, the fat grams go down. But for a person like me, I'm not trying to lose weight. My fat intake is very high. And if my fat intake goes down too low, I get really grumpy. And I don't feel good. And this happened this weekend. And so I made up for it like Sunday night and Monday with 2 rib steaks, and just feeling not so strong, right? Not so happy. So I just gorge on the meat. So I use the app called Chronometer to track my macronutrients. I put my food in there. And I've done this many, many weeks on and off for the last 6 months, and I have a pattern. And there are some days when I'll have 220 grams of protein in one day, and my fat intake will be 160, and then my carbs are at 20, for example. And that's a lot of fat and protein, that's a lot of meat. And then the next day I can't eat that much food, right? So, because my other day was so filled with fat and protein. And I did this, so we're just talking here, we have lake life going on, so you guys live at a lake. My parents have a lake not too far from where they're at. So one weekend, this is a couple years ago, I get this meat CSA. I get a delivery of meat once a month from a farmer in Manchester, and my freezer was filling up. So what I did, I thawed a bunch of chuck steaks and various cuts of meat that were big and thick, and I thawed them out and I put them through the meat grinder, and I had this bowl, and it was filled with ground beef, and it was bright red, and it was awesome, and it was a Friday. It was like 5 o'clock. And now I'm like, what do I do with this? Like, this is like 5 pounds of meat or something. So my family's at the lake. So I called up my mom and I said, don't let anybody eat anything. I'm going to come over right now. I'll throw burgers on the grill. We'll just have these great organically raised grass-fed burgers. And so we did that on Friday. And then on Sunday, my sister says, we hardly ate anything at all this weekend. And she's talking about that corner in the kitchen with the chips and the bread, just piled on, and So that remained all weekend because Friday night we had these awesome burgers, right? So when you eat that really good food, your appetite goes down, you end up eating less food. And then later on, you get hungry again. So there's days here, like for my lunch, I've had as much as 2 pounds of meat for lunch here. And there's other days where I can barely fit in a pound. And that's just the cycle of it. So when do you eat? You eat when you're hungry. And then you can follow, you start to learn what your body wants. At first you train your body, and then later you let your body train you. Does that make sense? This is a year. This is me doing this for a year. So people talk about intermittent fasting, like when should you skip a meal? A lot of people skip breakfast every single day. And then 11:30, oh my God, it's almost noon. I can't wait to eat. Right? That's not how you do it. The way you intermittent fast is you just gorge yourself on meat, and if you want some vegetables, fine, that's your choice. And then you see how long can you go before you get hungry again. Like, that's how you do it. As opposed to like starving at 11 a.m., 11:15, 11:30, 11:45. Okay, now it's time to eat, right? So I had a day, this is actually, what's the name? Bundy Hill. You know Bundy Hill? No? It's west of the lakes. Yeah, Bundy Hill. So my friend got a Jeep Grand Cherokee Trail Master, whatever. So we went to Bundy Hill, and this is on a Sunday, and I skipped breakfast. We went trail riding. That was a lot of fun. And then on the way back, we went to the Patriot Grub. Yeah, that was the best steak I think I've had in like 10 years. And it was a big fat ribeye steak, 20 ounces. It was 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was fantastic. I went home, I slept, I took a nap, and then I didn't have dinner and I didn't have breakfast the next day. So I went about 22 hours on that one steak. Yeah, so that's how you do it, like depending on what you had. Now, another example of this would be I used to give lectures, a day and a half long weekend lecture, all day Saturday and then Sunday morning, skipping lunch, and sometimes the lecture would end at 1, sometimes it would end at 3. And I did this about 75 times over the course of 8 years. And it took me about 25 weekends to figure out what my body needed. So I figured out that on Friday night I had to have a steak. This is to get me through this lecture. And it was very active because I was muscle testing doctors on stage. And so I'm not just standing talking, I'm actually physically doing stuff. And so steak Friday night, Saturday morning was lots of eggs, lots of bacon, lots of sausage. Saturday at lunch was a steak salad. Saturday dinner was another steak. Now I could make it 16 ounces, 18, 20, 24 ounces, depending on how much activity I had during the day, how big is the audience, how long is it going to last on Sunday. Food was my medicine. Food was my drug, right? And I knew exactly how much energy I needed to expend for the rest of the weekend. So Sunday morning, again, eggs, sausage, bacon, and then no lunch, right? And then the seminar would be done. Now I'm telling you, on Saturday morning, with my big fatty protein meal, if I had this much yogurt, it threw me off. My energy was just a little bit less. If I had just a few pieces of watermelon, pineapple, fruit on the buffet, it threw me off for the rest of the weekend. I'm telling you, talking 20 or 30 grams of carbohydrates Saturday morning messed me up for the rest of the weekend. So that was my experiment, and so that's the way that your diet is an experiment every single time that you eat, and you pay attention to, is my energy good for the next 6 hours, 8 hours, next day? Is my brain working good? Am I alert? Do I need to take a nap? Do I need to, that kind of stuff. So you gotta think of it that way. Your diet's always an experiment. And then after a while you come to a conclusion and you think you have it, and then you learn new information, and then you might have to change your conclusions. So I was low carb. Here's my history. When I graduated from chiropractic school, 1997, I started practice in Toledo, and in 1999, I think it was, or maybe 99, I saw an ad in the paper, and it said, basically, come to our house, we have a nutrition lecture. So I show up, and the guy's name is Don Mattis. And I follow him on Instagram, and I follow him on Twitter too. He's still active in this community, and he just wrote a book called Carnivore. So I'm in Don's living room with his wife at the time, and she says to me, Rachel, the value of dairy is the fat. Why would you eat low-fat dairy? And I was like, oh my gosh, you mean that there's good fat and there's bad fat? That's realization. So in 2000 is when I last purchased my last loaf of bread, okay? And in 2003, I had eight soda pops. That was the last time I drank pop, was 2003. I've never purchased rice. I've never purchased pasta ever to bring home, or even at a restaurant that I can think of. So, and then I kept track of my carbohydrates very diligently for a long time, and I was below 75 grams of carbs since the year 2000. Now, if I cheated, my carbs would go up to 100 or 125. Compare that with the standard American diet, which is 300 grams of carbohydrates a day. All right, so I was below 75 the majority of the time. And then I learned about ketosis. Now, I knew about ketosis in 2000, 2001. I attended some chiropractic nutrition seminars, and a guy named Dr. Michael Dobbins started talking about that, about ketosis, and he talked about Bob. Who's Bob? Dr. Atkins. Bob says, in Bob's book, he says, so I was exposed to the Atkins diet and ketosis in 2001, 2002, but I didn't really know how to apply it. And then 4 years ago, I started learning how to actually apply ketosis well, keeping track of the macronutrients and applying it to my patients, and getting the understanding of what types of exercise are good for it, and how to facilitate that. Can you make sure the air conditioner stays on right here in the hallway? Drop it down to 71 and hit hold. So now it was a year ago when I learned about the Carnivore Diet on Twitter. I think, so then on one day last year in the late summer, I woke up, it was a Tuesday, and I was really hungry. because my previous day's food was not adequate enough. So Tuesday morning, that's my day. I'm going to start the carnivore diet. So I had 4 burger patties for breakfast. That's a pound. I had 2 for lunch, and then 1 for dinner. So I had almost 2 pounds of ground beef on that day. And that night, I slept like a baby. And I don't have sleeping problems, but I slept really, really well that night. So 3 days later, my chest pain's gone. So I had this deep chest pain down near my spine. I thought I blamed the black mold from the old office. But it turns out I was deficient in whatever red meat has. It was a red meat deficiency. And then like doing this and standing up straight with good posture now became possible. Whereas before there's this like constant tension of like bringing my shoulders in. You can see that when people are starting to get ill, chronically ill, name the disease, whatever the diagnosis is, doesn't matter, they start to slouch. And they may be losing their bones, like osteoporosis or something, or their heart is like weak or something like that. So this sort of posture comes with the carnivore diet. Yeah?
Is that raw or cooked?
It was cooked. Yeah. I haven't done raw meat.
How do you cook it, Darren?
Over a flame or on the stovetop, super simple. Yeah, keep it I don't like cooking at all. If you don't like cooking but you want to go carnivore, here's a great book. This is called The Carnivore Cookbook from Jessica Haggard, and her husband is Tristan, and they are YouTubers. And it says 0 carb recipes for people who really love animals. And yeah, and it's so simple, super easy. So you can, I don't know, they sent this to me for free. I don't know where to buy it from. I'm assuming Amazon or whatever. Okay, but you can search for that, the Carnivore Cookbook. Okay. So within 10 days, I broke my chest press record. In my house, I have these weights that are adjustable with a bench. And I'm like feeling like this. And I look at these weights, and I bought more weights than I ever thought I would ever lift. But I'm looking at these weights like, I can lift that and that and that and that. And so I just set it to my record, and I picked them up, laid it on my bench, and I'm like, I lifted it 3 times. So so I started working out really hard, and at one point I was doing like these kind of lifts like this for the back, and I'm bent over, like a bent over row, and my back goes tweak, and I felt this pull, and I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna take 2 weeks to heal, because I'm a chiropractor, I know this kind of stuff, right? And there are times I'm walking around like this, and it's a 9 out of 10, especially when I sit in the car, you know, the way the car seat is sort of curved and all that. That pain was gone in 3 days. 3 days, and it surprised me. So there's another time where I tweaked my back, or I hurt something, and it went away. The healing was so fast. Okay, now, but longer term now, my brain was working better and better over the course of months. Like at 3, 4, 5 months, I'm like, brain power all day better than ever before. And the type of work I do, it's brainy stuff, especially when I'm on the phone with somebody looking at the computer screen. That's like high intensity brain power needed right there. So now I go to, there's Amani's. Okay, it's a barbecue place not too far from here. I go there a lot. And on Mondays they have a special. It's a coney dog. So I say 2 coney dogs with the meat sauce on top, no bun, just the meat. And I've done this 4 times in 6 months. I did this on Monday. And so I ate it, I come back to the office, and I'm sitting in my chair, and I get really tired. And I cross my arms, and I fall asleep. And I don't know how long I was asleep for. But then I realized, this has happened 3 other times. It's the coney dogs, or it's the meat sauce, right? Or something's wrong with that food, so I'll never order it again, right? Because when you eat your food, you should get energy from it, or at least be relaxed and not being crashed, you know? Okay. Now, having said that, there has been a few times where I eat something really fatty and meaty for dinner, and then I go on the lazy boy chair with my laptop, and I'm going to start typing or whatever, and I'm out, and there's no getting up. You know that moment where you're asleep, and you're like, I know I'm awake, and I need to move, but I can't move because your body's like, like lead, right, like that. So that's happened twice, and I'm not saying that the meat was bad. What I'm saying in that instance was your body kicks into parasympathetic mode, which is, rest and digest, as opposed to sympathetic, which is fight or flight. So one of those nights was a big leg of lamb that I cooked myself. Anyway, so yeah, you can induce some really good sleep, and it may come at a time when you're not really ready for it. Okay, now another thing I want to talk about is, besides the brain power, is clarity of thought and clean thinking. Now there's a website called meatheals.com, and people go on that and they put in their success story, and they show like weight loss before and after pictures and stuff like that. And one thing that's super interesting is addictions going away on the carnivore diet. All right, so what's addicting? Flashing lights, bells and whistles. That would be the internet, or that would be gambling, right? Nervous system stimulation. That kind of stuff goes away. There's a calm feeling that appears that is kind of not describable. It's hard to describe. Where, like, things just are better. Life is better. You become more human on a carnivore-style way of eating.
So what do you put on the meat?
What do you put on the meat?
Really nice sirloin burgers at home. So what would I put on that rascal to stay in compliance?
Okay, I don't really season much, but I do have a big cupboard of seasonings from various gifts and stuff, and so I open up the whatever and I smell it. No, not this one, not today. Smell it. Yeah, I'll do this one.
But salt and pepper, okay.
Yeah, salt and pepper, okay, right. And salt is very, very important.
Yeah.
Right, so 2 teaspoons of Celtic sea salt per day will prevent keto flu, constipation, muscle cramping, all these side effects that people get when they get into ketosis. Okay, so, and that's the main key here about the carnivore diet plus ketosis, is that the carnivore diet is no carbs. It's 0 carbs, therefore you'll be in ketosis. Just like fasting is no carbs, right? You'll get into ketosis. You don't have to eat high fat to get into ketosis. That's not needed. It's helpful because you're satisfied, makes you happy, keeps your stomach full, right? But the idea here, and one of my favorite quotes from Amber O'Hearn, I showed you her website, one of my favorite quotes is, the reason why fasting works is because it mimics the carnivore diet. The carnivore diet is superior to fasting. So let me share this with you. I was just on the phone 2 hours ago with a guy, an engineer formerly of Boeing, and last time we talked was June of last year, so it's been over a year. And at the time, his idea was, and I probably coached him on this, was to do some fasting, and he lost 35 pounds, and now he's too small. He says he's too small, which I believe him. He wants to put on some muscle, but not fat. And but he was afraid of his fatty liver, so he did the fasting. I'm sure his liver is all cleaned up now. So I said, all right, raise your protein way up, and then keep your carbs down, and then you got to figure out where your fat grams need to be. I said, all your fasting was very beneficial, but he didn't necessarily enjoy it. He got the benefits he wanted from it, but that's not such a good lifestyle when you have this other option of the carnivore way of eating, the way that our ancestors used to eat. So anyways, that's where he's going with this, and he's going to start getting back in the gym and put on some muscle. And then I need to talk about Carrie, her husband. Their daughter just got married, right? And they've been carnivore for 66 days. And they got pictures of the family, and her husband's saying, I'm so glad you got me on the carnivore diet because I look awesome. And he's 6'5", and he's a long distance runner, so he's normally really sort of gone or thin, but now he's all filled out, and he's got these muscles. So, and I've been saying this for a while. The biggest organ in your body is muscles. People think it's liver or skin or brain. It's your muscles. If you don't feed your muscles, all these other organs don't have a chance. your little tiny baby thyroid, it's this big, and your stupid little adrenals like that. There's so much focus on these organs, and there should be, but you gotta eat red meat to feed your muscles. So I'll talk a little bit about the difference between red meat and other meats. So there's chicken and fish. The difference is hemoglobin. And so it's the heme, the iron that's in red meat is in a different form than in spinach. And so you eat this and it supplies iron and oxygen to your muscles. It's actually called myoglobin in the muscles, myoglobin. Another term is heme iron. Okay, now you heard about the Impossible Burger, right? Or Beyond Burger. And it's supposed to mimic meat. Well, what they did is they did some DNA manipulation of some yeast. And that yeast is creating a fake myoglobin. And there's a term for it. It begins with an L, I forgot. Leukoglobin or something like that. So that's why the Beyond Burger is like popular now with a number of restaurants and grocery stores, although McDonald's won't pick it up and In-N-Out Burger won't pick it up, and they lost a whole bunch of money with their stock a few weeks ago. It doesn't seem to be going as well as they thought it would. And so anyways, that's the key here is the myoglobin. So you have these ruminant animals, that's the cows and the goats and the lamb, and they walk on all fours, and they have to keep walking because the new grass is over there. They eat that, and then they got to walk, and they're constantly walking, right? Whereas chickens are in the barn, and they're not flapping their wings. So this breast meat here is white. It's not infused with blood. It's almost as if this meat here is dead in the chicken because they're just not flapping their wings. So and so when you look back 100 years ago or more, people would just pick up their shotgun and without even looking, just pull the trigger and they'd get 5 birds, I'm kind of exaggerating, but those birds are flying, So this chicken is like a man-made sort of processed meat that's, even before they kill it, it's like man-made processed. So there is a huge difference, and you might be able to tell the difference between eating chicken versus red meat. Okay, all right. So there, I just went over about 30 minutes worth of information. I did not know what I was going to say, but I got plenty to say, I guess.
With the chicken, though, if it's like a farm-raised chicken, raises chicken, the dark meat.
Yeah, the same thing with pig. So the darker meat and the turkey, the darker meat would be better quality with more nutrition in there, right? And here's another thing about this. So when you're eating low carb like this, you retain your vitamins and minerals. So you don't have to get your USDA daily value or RDA of vitamins and minerals because you're not losing anything. Those RDAs are based on the Standard American high carb diet. There's a huge, and all these old books I read, the feeding studies of the 1940s, there were rats that were born, they had vitamin E their whole life. They didn't have to take in any vitamin E because they're born with enough that'll last them a whole lifetime. Like, how come we can't do that? Well, it's because we're eating bread and rice and high carb stuff. So keep your nutrients by eating low carb. That's a very important aspect of this, right? So sailors got scurvy. They lost their vitamin C because they're eating hardtack, which is bread, this biscuit that was like this. And it wouldn't go stale for weeks on end in the ship, in a barrel of a ship. And then they would get this hardtack and they had to let it soak in their tea and they would soften up. Then they could eat it. Otherwise, they would lose their teeth. They're like biting into a rock and their teeth would break off. The first signs of scurvy. One of the first signs of scurvy. Okay. Michaela, can you get me in my office? I got this poster with the lactic acidosis cycle. Actually, I have 2 of them. Can you just bring both? All right. Questions?
So if you don't have a gallbladder, do you think you can do this stuff?
Well, yeah, just take more ox bile and bile salts, and you
All right,
gotta.
So just pile it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Show
Does
me,
fish
show
fit
me.
into this picture?
Fish does fit into the picture.
Yeah.
Fish is an inferior food. Imagine our ancestors who lived by water, they're still hunting for red meat. So let's say the caribou run away, our ancestors would go fishing, and then the caribou would come back. They'd start hunting the caribou again, and they would, let the fish go.
I'm thinking about the importance of the cod liver oil.
Right, yeah, the whole aspect of cod liver oil, we're talking now in the 1980s, here's this omega-3, we're deficient in omega-3, so take these fish oil pills. Well, the problem is Americans are eating too much omega-6 from deep-fried everything. So you quit the deep-fried food, and you can eat, you can get the omega-3 from, grass-fed beef.
But didn't Weston and Price emphasize the bioavailable vitamin A that came from the liver, and vitamin B, but, which is not...
Well, cod liver oil plus the butter, right, yeah. Yeah, that's still really important.
So fish oil isn't going to give you vitamin A.
Fish oil is not?
Plain old fish oil as opposed to liver oil. It's in the liver.
Yeah, I don't know if fish oil gives you the vitamin A. I don't know the technicalities of that.
It comes from the liver, not...
But the point is, eat a wide variety of things. So yeah, fish is important, but it's not as important as red meat, right? And liver is important, but how much liver can you eat? You can't eat liver large quantities twice a day.
With onions.
Well, I know, but I don't know of anybody that would eat it twice a day. Like people can eat red meat twice a day. So a therapeutic amount of liver would be 2 servings a week, right? That's my opinion. Yeah, I learned that from another YouTuber, Frank Tofano is his name. He said two a week, and I was like, oh, that totally makes sense.
Now, when you're saying red meat, are you talking lamb, beef, pork? What are you talking?
Lamb, beef, and goat.
Lamb, beef, beef.
Yeah.
Where does pork go in there?
I'm not sure. Just eat it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So this board right here is the most common mechanism of chronic disease. Whoops, it's called lactic acidosis. And the way that you fix it is you have to address this, the red here, this, which is hydrogen, which is acid, and then dirty blood here, and then you got to fix the liver here. So there's 4 things to do to fix the most common mechanism of chronic disease. Now there's a book called How to Starve Cancer by Jane McClellan, and I learned from her there's actually 18 other ways of the mechanism of cancer. All right, so this is one of 19, but this is the most common one because it's cancer and heart disease and diabetes and fibromyalgia and 150 other symptoms and conditions, right here. So now I made this board based on information actually from the 1930s and 40s, and I said, well, here's how you fix it. Ketosis here, and fasting helps ketosis, and burst training helps ketosis. You got to get rid of that sugar. There's step 1. Step 2, add in oxygen to get rid of the hydrogen. It combines, it forms water, you excrete it out. So here we have oxygen therapy, ozone, deep breathing, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and hydrogen peroxide. How do you clean up the blood? I wrote juice vegetables. It cleans the blood. Like radishes with the sulfur and beets and, yeah, there's plenty of plants. It's a cleansing diet when you have tons and tons of vegetables. It's low energy. I wouldn't say it's life-sustaining very well. All right, how do you fix the liver? These supplements have liver in them. You can eat liver. You want to detox and fix mold, detox mold out. You get the liver working better. So there's one way, do this and this and this and this, or maybe just pick 2 out of 4. But a few months after I made this board, I realized red meat fixes that. If you're eating a carnivore diet, you're in ketosis. You solve the sugar problem. And you're adding in the myoglobin. What did I say earlier? It adds in iron and oxygen into the muscle. So adding in the oxygen gets rid of the acid. So now you fix 2 out of 4 things just with red meat. And so when you're eating red meat and you're not eating a bunch of garbage, it cleans the blood. You're avoiding any sort of plant toxins. You're not eating junk food. It's cleansing. Red meat is very nutritious. It's one of the most nutritious things you can eat. And then it fixes the liver too. So, you know, like I said earlier, if you don't feed your muscles, all the other organs, they don't have a chance, including the liver. So red meat fixes all 4 of these stages of the lactic acid cycle, the death cycle, cachexia. All right, cool? Yeah. That was a red letter day for me to figure that out. All right. Questions? Yeah.
You said juicing vegetables, are those the lower carb vegetables or?
Yeah, you can juice the lower carb vegetables, yeah.
Well, wouldn't you be better off to eat them than juice them?
Yeah,
I mean, you know, 'cause then you've got the.
sure, if you want to do that, yeah. Right.
What was the question?
I said it would be to eat them rather than to juice them. You know, just eating them instead of juicing them.
Oh,
Go ahead.
so you can eat, you can still have your vegetables.
It's your choice, yeah. Do what you want to.
Like out most of your vegetables.
Yeah, you can still have your vegetables, yeah. Okay, now the question is, how much? How many grams of carbs? Right? So I have that one equation that I leave on my board for everybody to see. Quantity plus quality equals vitality. I mentioned this at the USDA Food Dietary Guidelines Committee. I have this conversation every day with somebody. And they say, what about bananas and almonds? And they start listing off, and I eat zucchini. I grow zucchini. Okay, great. What are the grams of carbohydrates and the fat and the protein for your 24 hours, right? So obviously everybody that talks to me and they come in here and they're handing over cash, they're going to choose good quality food. They're not eating junk food, but then you have to arrange the macronutrients. Now, so getting back to, so there's a little attention here on the vegetables and juicing vegetables. If you want to do it, great, that's fine. Pay attention to how you feel, and then experiment by not having those vegetables and eating more meat, and maybe your body doesn't like it. Like my girlfriend, her body runs better on vegetables than on meat, right? So everybody's different. So you just have to figure it out for yourself. But you want that brain to clear up, you want to feel physically stronger, you want your muscles to feel stronger. You don't want to be like dragging out of bed, right? You wake up and you're out of bed, right? It's annoying to be in bed once you wake up. That should be how it goes. Yeah, go ahead.
We're still okay with like coconut cream and the good fats.
Well, again, macronutrients.
Yeah.
How much? What's your goal? Are you trying to lose weight? So bring your carbs, your fats down. So let me give you an example. So for your protein, grams, it should be your ideal weight. Ideal weight in pounds, LBS. So if you weigh 200, you want to weigh 150. Your goal is 150 grams of protein per day. And then that's a lot of meat. And then your carbs are less than 20. Now you're in ketosis. And you're killing cancer cells and you're cleaning out your arteries and everything's great. Here you feel great, you feel strong, your brain's working good. Here you're cleaning out your body of cancer cells and cleaning out your arteries and getting all that fat out of your liver and your pancreas. And then the last thing that's left here is the fat. Okay, so if you want to, let's say you're 200 pounds, you want to weigh 150, your fat grams might be 50. 50 grams of fat. Okay, now in my case, my ideal weight is, I'm at 180 right now. I'm gaining weight. I weigh more now than ever in my whole life, and I'm in ketosis every day. And I'm killing it in the gym. And I'm never sore because the myoglobin puts iron and oxygen in the muscles. I am never sore. So my protein goal is 180, for example. I can't do that. I can't get there. In 1 week's time, the best I've ever had was 155 grams of protein. I'll have days of 220, but like I said earlier, my next day I'm at like 105. I can't do this, but I'm trying for it. I'm reaching for it. You need to practice eating meat. It's your training. It's your best training. How much meat can you eat? You have to be like one of those, what do you call them? The guys that eat. No, the competitive eaters.
Hot dog eaters.
Yeah, you know, what they do is they'll take heads of lettuce and they just stuff it in their stomach and they're trying to expand their stomach with lettuce. That's how they practice. Right. Anyways, you're doing that with meat to try to rebuild your body. All right.
You're eating fatty?
Well, that's what I'm getting at here with this. So you're trying to lose weight, right? In this example of 150, and your fat grams might be at 50. If you want to gain weight, like I'll be at, some days I'm at 160 grams of fat. That's for me. So that I'm happy and my brain works really good and I'm not grumpy.
So you'll know if you start getting grumpy, you're not getting.
Yeah, if I'm getting grumpy, I got to get that fatty meat, right? Not lean stuff. Oh, God, throw that away. Or cover it in butter, right? Cover it in butter. Hide it in butter, and then maybe you can eat it. So you might know some people who eat a very low-fat diet by choice, and they're super grumpy. And they may attack you on Facebook. And they have an army of people who believe the same thing, and they're really angry. Do you know where I'm going with this? Yeah. And they have certain beliefs that make them less and less human. And they think strange, and their brain is like all twisted.
And where does the protein in eggs come in? Because I know eggs are also very good for you. Is it?
Where does it come in?
I mean,
How many grams of protein are in an egg? That's the question.
okay.
So Google that. Find out. Maybe it's 6 or something. It might be 6. It's kind of low. And I used to complain about eggs because they didn't stick. Right? I'd have 2 eggs in the morning, and by 10 o'clock, well, I didn't eat enough. So now I have minimum 6 every time, or 7. And one day I had 14 eggs because I didn't have any other meat that was thawed or whatever. Right? So 14 eggs with fried in bacon grease. That was for me. But you might not want to do the bacon grease, right? Depending on your goals for your fat intake. Okay? One other thing I want to add is, we talked about Weston Price. Somebody brought that up. Yeah, Weston Price. Yeah, I brought that up. He said when you combine the cod liver oil and the June butter, there's a certain nutrient that comes to life, and he called it activator X. And decades went by, nobody knew what it was until, I think it was the late 90s. Yeah, late 90s when some scientists figured out it was vitamin K. Now there's various versions of vitamin K, and maybe it was vitamin K2. But what's the best source of vitamin K? It'd be meat, right, or the fat from the animals. And all those fatty vitamins, A, D, E, K, those are in meat and animal fat. There's no vitamin A in plants. Now in the 1930s, vitamin A was called the anti-infective vitamin. It killed infections, right? Before they named it vitamin A, it was called the anti-infective. So if you have a flu or a cold or an infection, what food do you want to eat? You want to eat animal fat and protein. There's no plant that can help your body get rid of that bug. So all these people with Lyme disease and chronic mold like I had, or chronic virus, bacteria, you got to change your body by eating meat, right? You got to strengthen your immune system. Not only that, you add in all that animal fat and you go into ketosis, your LDL goes up a little bit. So my LDL, I just got my results on Monday, is 99 on this one lab. I'm sorry, it's 98. The normal is less than 99. So I'm right on the verge of being too high LDL on that particular lab. And it's like, great, my LDL is strong. LDL is anti-infective. LDL is antiviral. You know, LDL cholesterol, all that stuff is good for your hormones in your brain. LDL does not cause heart disease. Right? There's no science that shows that LDL is the cause of heart disease. And there's not even a good mechanism to describe even if it was. Right? So now you can have high LDL and eat a garbage junk food diet, and now you're in trouble. Yeah. But not because of the LDL. Right? right? It's because of the garbage that you're eating. So you can have healthy, good quality LDL streaming through your body, or you can have junk food, oxidized, crappy LDL that's like cluster bombs, spreading throughout your blood, destroying everything it touches. So anyways, there's a little thing about LDL. And then the benefits of eating animal fats and protein for your hormones and for your immune system. So there are plenty of people with chronic infections and chronic weakness, and so they take a bunch of supplements, and they do some juicing and some fasting, and that's, it's all good, but you really have to sort of do like a full rehabilitation of your body from head to toe, all your cells. And that's just purely where animal fat and protein comes in to change your body, to change the terrain of your body significantly. So like it'd be like eating meat, carnivore diet, number 1, fasting would be number 2, and then everything else. Cool? Yeah.
So did you get the meat from lambs out there at Manchester?
No,
Somebody else?
that's another farm. I'm familiar with them, but no, I've had their meat, but I don't get them regularly. My farmer gave me emu once. She had a whole bunch of emu, and one she kept for a pet. I don't know why you keep an emu for a pet, but it was red meat. It was good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up on learning about fat is bad, of course, and clogging your arteries.
Fat clogging the arteries.
You hear that, right?
Yeah.
And do I have to be concerned when I cook my eggs in bacon fat? We do the same thing. Eggs come out of the pan, really great.
No, it's always the sugar. It's always been the sugar. Yeah, let me find, I have a really good graphic to show. I just have to pull it up. But the point here is it's all about the ketogenic diet where your body is mobilizing the fat out of stores and using that for energy. So the mobilization comes from, the obvious deposits like here or wherever, but also from within the organs. So within the heart, within the liver, within the pancreas. So it cleans it all up. Oh, let me see if I can find this picture. But the other thing too is you have way more energy with ketosis. Because fat has just more energy and it's longer lasting and it burns cleaner too. I can't find it. So imagine in your house you have a wood stove and then you have a gas burner stovetop. So you're throwing wood in the wood stove and it's dirty, there's smoky, there's bark everywhere and ashes you got to clean up. That's burning sugar. But the gas stove, you turn it on and you got this little blue flame. You don't even have to turn on the vent. It burns so cleanly, there's no smoke. That's like burning ketones. That's ketosis. So you're not damaging your body as you would with the sugar. Does that help? Yeah. It's a whole new viewpoint. All the physiology textbooks assume everybody's a sugar burner all the time. And they may have a few pages on ketosis. And they'll say ketosis is good for epilepsy, which was known in the 1920s. But the advancements in the science has been accelerating in the last 10, 15 years. It's been really good. So these physiology textbooks need to change. In the meantime, maybe we need to get rid of textbooks and just stick with what's on, the latest research on the internet, right? Books are a little bit outdated now. I mean, they're still valuable, of course, but when it comes to, human health and being updated, you won't be updated when you read a physiology textbook. Okay, another question? Yeah.
Would you repeat the vitamins?
Yeah. A, D, E, and K.
Okay. Do you eat any fruit?
I do have some fruit. Yeah, I think I've had fruit twice in the last 4 to 6 months. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you regular? I mean, in terms of your bowels and everything without we're so fiber oriented.
Right, yeah. So you're asking me personally for me?
Or just this people with this diet, you don't have
Well, most people just respond by having 2 teaspoons of calcic sea salt, and that fixes it. Okay, and if you're not happy with that, I had a patient a long time ago. She had oatmeal every morning for breakfast, and she was low carb the rest of the day. And so she was regular, and she lost 35, 40 pounds, and everything's good. So you can still have the oatmeal, or let's say you can have fruit for breakfast, and then or low carb, low carb vegetables would be smarter. And then you're low carb for 22 hours for the rest of the day. That's still workable. You might lose weight with that, so that's something you can do. So personally, I had a lab test come back on Monday showing that I have an autoimmune thyroid condition. So it's called TPO, thyroid peroxidase, was 155, and it should be less than 34. So I would have never guessed I would have this, right? So I look up the symptoms, there's like a dozen or 15 symptoms, and I have 2 of those symptoms. One is constipation, the other one is hair loss, which I got 13 years ago within 6 months of moving into the moldy house with the moldy basement. And it took me 4 years to realize I got a moldy basement, right? So I got probably some mold issues here in the thyroid causing this autoimmune reaction, the attack on the thyroid, and then therefore constipation, hair loss, and that's it. So anyways, I released a video on Monday about autoimmune thyroid, and I got my lab results 5 hours later. I was like, okay, well, good thing I figured this out for these other people, because now I have it. And the main supplement for it is called artemisinin, which is there's a plant called wormwood. The main nutrient in it is called artemisia. And so this product here is called artemisinin complex from MediHerb. So what MediHerb does is they take the wormwood plant and they also combine with it extra artemisia, right? So in 2015, for the first time ever, the Nobel Prize in Medicine went to a plant, an herbal research. So there's various researchers in different parts of the world, and they got the Nobel Prize because artemisia kills a whole bunch of wide variety of organisms. All right, and I brought this. Now don't read the label because this is scratched out, but I want you to smell it. And wait.
Wasn't that considered poisonous?
Well, yeah, it kills parasites and it kills fungus and it kills bacteria.
It smells pretty good.
Yeah, it's kind of floral.
It smells like a Christmas cookie.
Yeah, it smells like a Christmas cookie. So I was thinking it smelled like Christmas. No, I thought it smells like Christmas, but it doesn't smell like Christmas Day.
No.
It smells like pre-Christmas, because Christmas Day is a different smell. You know what I'm saying? That was my thought.
It's a turkey's cookie.
Like a molasses.
This is nice, yeah.
Yeah.
People use it to make
Quite
wreaths
nice.
out of too.
To make what?
Wreath, or
A wreath? Oh, from wormwood?
artemisia, the
Or-
plant.
oh, okay.
Silvery leaf, and it's pretty,
Oh, okay.
and it's fragrant.
Isn't
Yeah.
just the wormwood a parasitic thing?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then isn't that where they make absinthe from, or is that a different plant?
No, it's wormwood.
Yeah, so absinthe, which was hallucinogenic earlier, then it got banned, but then they brought it back on the market because they took out the hallucinogenic part of it. So you can buy absinthe now. Anyways, that comes from wormwood. It's a very diverse plant with all these wide variety of chemicals in it that does a lot of things. So picture that, compare that with doxycycline, right, which is one chemical in large quantity, right? So if you picture the graph, like the chromatography, how they measure for the contents of a powder, right? Here's doxycycline, right? But here's wormwood, right? Just a wide variety of stuff. So your body looks like this. Your body does not look like this. So you want to kill this virus, you want to kill this fungus, you want to, upregulate this pathway. So add in all these nutrients. That's the beauty of. So now we're talking about plants, right? This could be poisonous for somebody and then beneficial for another. So plants are medicine. All these things are called secondary metabolites. Secondary, I'm not going to spell it out. Secondary metabolites. Okay, so you have a plant that's made out of, it's got fiber, it's got carbohydrates, it's got carbon, it's got water. Carbohydrate is carbon plus water. The plant has oil in it. These are the things that make up the structure of the plant. But then the plant makes all these other chemicals for defense, for attracting pollinators, for doing making us smell, all these things. So that's medicine right there. So you eat your base is meat, and then when you want to kill some parasites or whatever, you want to help, feed your thyroid some potent nutrients, that's where the plants come in. Plants are not the base of your diet. When I was at that USDA Dietary Guidelines meeting a couple weeks ago, one of the speakers, the very first speaker, he was a pro-plant person. He talked about eating our 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day and how people enjoy it. And fruits and vegetables are high in micronutrient density and low in energy. I was like, wait, what? Low in energy. You got that right. Plants are low in energy. Right. What happens when you're low in energy? You get grumpy. You want to fight people because you're so tired and it's like, well, yeah. Okay, so Artemisinin, where'd that go? Did you guys smell it yet?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks.
So, Darren, what about nuts and seeds that we used to talk about? Do they fit in anywhere?
That's a good question. So the question is, what about nuts and seeds? Do they fit anywhere in here? So now if you got a virus, like a lot of people do, then you have to avoid nuts and seeds. And if you have any allergies to nuts and seeds, you got to avoid them. If you're sensitive to things like peanuts because of the fungus on them, that kind of stuff. So it's questionable. And I've always said that about nuts and seeds. If everybody's okay with them, then great. But again, look at the quantities, right? So macadamia nuts are high in fat. They're the highest in fat. And then seeds would be more protein and less fat, right? So you can put that into the equation. And then if you like nuts and seeds because they help you go to the bathroom more or something like that, then that's fine. But what you find out, the more carnivore way of eating, there's no snacking, right? I had a patient ask me this a while ago. He goes, okay, just tell me what to eat. He goes, let's say I'm driving around, going to my next job site, and I need to get a snack. And I go to the gas station, what do I get? And they said, dude, there's no snacking. Why are you needing to snack? I said, your 3 meals need to be awesome. And what does that mean? If you're snacking, it means you didn't have enough meat, right? Snacking is a sign that your previous meal did not have enough meat. So, and I need to say, we were trained by the dietitians and nutritionists to have this much meat per serving, right? Remember that? Cut your fingers off, it's this thick and this big around. So it's 4 ounces twice a day, that's 8 ounces, that's half a pound. Oh man, no way. And you got to think in terms of pounds of meat per day, not ounces. Pounds. How many pounds of meat can you eat in a day? That's the question. Yeah.
If you bought hamburger, what's the fat content that you would recommend?
Good question. So if you buy a hamburger, what's the fat content you would recommend? So you got to experiment with this again, right? So you can get the 75%, 25%. Right. So the last time I bought 90-10, I ate that, and then I wanted to punch somebody. It's all personal preference. And then again, you also want to meet your goals. Right? So if you're trying to do this, and there's bodybuilders that they do this. They have their cut days or their cut, time period before a competition where their protein is very high and their fat and their carbs are very low. Right? So anyways, my answer to your question is it depends.
We go to the store and say it depends.
Well, start with 90-10 and eat that and see how long you can go before you want to punch somebody, and hopefully you're fine with it, and it's lean meat, and you start, losing weight because your carbs and fat are down. So hopefully, you do really well with 90-10.
But you're grumpy.
Well, I am, but, not everybody's going to be grumpy, hopefully. Yeah, go ahead.
So if you can't have the dairy,
Yeah.
you can just add fat like the extra virgin olive oil, coconut.
Right, butter, bacon grease, lard, tallow, if you can't have the dairy. Right, there's a lot of people that they can't have the dairy because of the sinus stuff and the reactions, the mucus formation and that kind of stuff. Yeah, question here.
What's the best way to convince a vegetarian that they should be eating carb?
Maybe we should shut the video off at this point. Wait, no, don't. Did you? No? What's the best way to convince a vegetarian to eat meat? There's a lot of subjects in that answer. So saving the planet and being friends with the animals and having good personal health and that kind of stuff. So everything is debunkable, right? But let's talk about the planet and farming, right? So if everybody was a vegan, vegetarian, there would be a lot of monocropping. So trillions of acres that you run a disc and a plow through it and you spray it or not. But you still got to run a disc or a plow through it. And there's all the rodents and the snakes and the reptiles, the birds, the insects. They can't live there. And the farm I grew up on, very sterile. There's no fish in the streams. There'd be like a 100-year-old snapper turtle sometimes. True. And 17 summers on the farm, I saw deer like once. And that was it, because it's all sterile. But if you want to be friends with the planet, you have a bunch of ruminant animals grazing on pasture, and then you can see the groundhogs and the snakes can live, and the birds are happier. So the best way to have, and so in the United States in 1860, there were like 100 million wild buffalo. So right now we have like 50 or 70 million cows confined. So there is a way ideally that could be worked around, that we have lots of grazing cows that's sustainable, but I don't know, that's sort of a pipe dream, I really think. But the point is, a lot of agricultural land is not even tillable, right? So land that's rocky or like goes up a mountainside or something like that. So that's where you put cows or goats or sheep. And then regarding being friends with animals, Adele Davis, I think she was more vegetarian. Yeah, and she was a popular nutritionist in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. And she wanted to be friends with the animals, and that was her reason. And there's like this circle of life, right? Like people think that we have to save the lives of all the animals. I think they need to see the Lion King, right? Right? They watch too much Bambi, not enough Lion King. So it's a harsh thing to say, but it's whatever. It's personal preference. And then regarding personal health, I've seen people, it's kind of rare, who do better not eating meat, because meat is heavy for them and they get tired from it, and they're dragging their bodies around. So hey, it's your body. Do what you want, So there's that. So, but now there's people that would rather die and be right. Right? There's people that would drink beer all the way to their dead, even though it's causing their death, right? And them drinking beer shows that they're right. You know what I'm saying? So the same thing with, I've encountered vegans on social media, and they're sick. And they talk about how sick they are, and their body's breaking down. And they're doing it for the animals. And they'd rather have cows live and then die. That's what they prefer. It's a bit suicidal. And that's part of the mentality of it. Right? And there's one doctor who was a vegan, and he was all pissed off and unhealthy, and his mom said, look, his mom was a vegan. She goes, look, you shouldn't be a vegan. It's not good for your body. And so he changed his ways because his mom told him, like, hey, it's not, this diet's not working for you. So anyways. So I don't know how to answer that question. Yeah.
Okay, so my son follows Michael Greger.
Yeah, Gregor.
And so are there people out there who have research that shows that having the carnivore diet is good for at least this group?
What kind of research?
If there's anything scientific.
What does that mean?
Oh, gosh. Well, if he follows Greger does all this, studies of.
Gregor doesn't show studies.
He reviews
No.
studies, right?
He doesn't review studies either, no. So Gregor reviews, there's many flaws in the types of studies that he picks. But primarily he goes over surveys,
Okay.
right? Like a survey like, hey, what do you eat? And how's your health? That's not a study, that's not scientific. So the majority of nutrition research is a survey or a poll. And we know how good polls are, right? Like, just imagine November of 2016, what the poll said. So the other thing that Gregor really focuses on is these single meal studies. Like, okay, we ate blueberries or blueberry pancakes versus regular pancakes. And with the regular pancakes, the sugar spiked up higher. Okay, in the course of 4 hours. Like that, okay, a single meal study, like that's not what you base your life off of. And then there's another type of study, I can't remember exactly, but the point is I've watched hours and hours and hours of Gregor and Mike the Vegan and, all the vegans. I've spent days watching vegan videos trying to understand why they say the things they say. It's because they're misrepresenting the science or they don't know how to read the science. There's a lot of videos where you have a carnivore keto person versus a vegan. The keto person wins every time. They bring the facts. Keto, carnivore, they bring the facts. They use the controlled trials. The vegans don't. But for some reason, the vegans tend to have such a huge following, probably because of the emotions and stuff and the Bambi sort of feelings and stuff like that. Yeah, go ahead.
About 3 months for your body to get used to all that meat, or sooner?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, several months to get used to the meat potentially, right? Everybody's different. I mean, I got people, they start in on it and they feel great. Make sure the air conditioner is set at 71, please. And they don't have any trouble from the get-go. They just love it from the beginning. Another question?
Yeah, so Carrie and her husband in 66 days have really,
Yeah, they're doing great with it.
she mentioned it last time we were here, but
Yeah,
I didn't quite get what she was saying. Now I understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then do you suggest, I'm a rare meat eater anyways, but
Yeah.
are most people eating it rare? Or
Uh,
rare, not raw, rare?
I don't have a suggestion for that. It depends on your taste. Yeah. At the Carnivore Conference in March, I met a group of people that were eating nothing but rare meat, and that was it for over a year. And what's interesting is they become very, very careful about the cuts and the smells and the taste. They tune in on that like so greatly because it's got to be really good quality meat, right? So a lot of the carnivore rare meat eaters, they talk about parasites are not an issue. Okay, I don't know about that. I mean, I have so many patients pooping out parasites, and then they feel better, right? So I'm still like, and that's why I haven't gone with rare meat. I mean, I'll do some sushi sometimes, right? But I'm not going to eat rare bacon or beef or pork or anything like that. Okay. All right, cool. All right, I'm going to end this. It's been 1 hour and 15 minutes, so okay, bye.